Kumba is a multi-looping roller coaster located at Busch Gardens Tampa. When this roller coaster opened in 1993, it served as the largest project ever completed by the legendary manufacturer B&M. Now, Kumba serves more like a blueprint for B&M's latest creations, with many other modern additions giving homage to this massive steel coaster. Speaking of its stature, Kumba stands 143 feet, with a 135-foot drop. The ride has 3,978 feet of track that includes 7 inversions. Kumba hits a max speed of 60 miles per hour. In the not-too-distant past, rumors were swirling that Kumba would be facing its demise by the end of the year. Well, the park came out and squashed those rumors, at least for the time being. Kumba I would consider to be an enthusiast fan favorite. The ride may not be one of the most popular attractions at Busch Gardens, but it seems to be rather popular with various circles inside the coaster community. For those who have been following up on my ventures, during my visit to Busch Gardens in 2021, I said that Kumba was one of the worst coasters in the park, and maybe it was time to be removed. Well, as you would have guessed, many enthusiasts didn't like my take on this beloved attraction and urged me to give Kumba another chance. Well, this year I got another ride on Kumba, and, well, yeah, I'm grateful that I listened to everyone because my position of this attraction has changed once again. Presentation. Kumba, which means roar, sits inside the Congo section of the park. Presentation-wise, Kumba is one nice coaster to look at. Being one of the older attractions, the foliage has plenty of time to grow in around the coaster, keeping it hidden from the vast portions of the park. Kumba received a new paint job earlier this year, and I must say the colors look great. The station and queue isn't anything worth writing home about, but the presentation is more about the surrounding area. Kumba interacts with the pathways, either diving underneath a bridge or flipping riders upside down high in the trees. There's also a tunnel featured near the end of the ride. It's nothing super exciting, but still a nice feature. Finally, the view of the interlocking corkscrews has to be one of the most iconic shots out there. All in all, a score of 9 seems fair for presentation. Ride intensity. After reaching the top of the lift and clearing the pre-drop, Kumba takes a swooping dive to the left. The coaster wastes no time by sending you into the first inversion, a giant vertical loop that wraps around the lift. Keeping the momentum, Kumba flies into the second inversion, a dive loop, which then sends you right into the third inversion, a zero-G roll. This is my favorite part of the ride. The zero-G roll is fast, snappy, and exciting. The coaster now dives through the trees, takes a little bunny hop before entering the Cobra roll. After completing this 2-inversion element, Kumba takes a slight turn to the left, rising up into the mid-course brake run. The coaster takes a diving turn to the left, enters the first corkscrew, immediately turns around, sending you into the second corkscrew, thus completing the interlocking corkscrew element. Kumba then dives under the ride entrance, takes a swooping turn to the left, and enters a tunnel. As you exit the tunnel, the ride sends you into an upward helix, which ends with a brake run. The most intense parts of this ride can be found during the first couple inversions. The G-forces at the bottom of the first drop and exiting the vertical loop is where I caught myself graying out. Also, the helix at the end of the ride is known to make me gray out a little, but this seems to be the case with most helixes. Overall, Kumba is no slouch when it comes to intensity, making me give it a 9 in this category. Fun factor. Kumba is all about the strong G-forces and inversions. If you aren't a fan of either, well then, Kumba might not be the ride for you. As I said earlier, the zero-G roll is the highlight of the ride. It's a fast element that has smooth, yet snappy transitions, giving you a nice whip entering and exiting the inversion. As for the other inversions, they're basically what you would expect from a B&M looping coaster. The way the coaster interacts with the surroundings is yet another reason to enjoy this coaster. The only negative I have to say in this category, which is more tied to another category, and that would be the headbanging. Fortunately, the headbanging wasn't as bad as I remember with my 2021 ride, but there's still a couple parts where the coaster likes to toss you around. If this doesn't bother you, then I could see Kumba getting higher marks. As it stands now, an 8 score in the fun factor seems more than fair. Originality. When we take a look at the year that Kumba opened, this was an original creation by B&M. We saw a couple first inversions like the interlocking corkscrews, and if we ignore the Ultra Twister models, Kumba has the first ever dive loop. Also, from what I could gather, outside of the technicality of saying that the first loop on Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain is 144 feet tall, I believe that the loop on Kumba is the tallest in the world, well, at the time anyways. Also, the zero-G roll wasn't an original element, but it was the first of its kind to be featured on a sit-down looping coaster. Prior to Kumba, it was featured on their inverted roller coasters. If we were to judge Kumba against the coasters of today, there would be nothing original about this attraction. However, since Kumba is the one that started it all, I feel that Kumba earns a perfect 10 score for originality. Ride Smoothness. Last year's ride, I thought Kumba was rough. There was an ever-present rattle, and of course, the head banging. This year, well, there's still a slight rattle, but it wasn't as bad. Now, the biggest difference is last year I rode in the very back, and this year I rode in the front, which is where you normally find the smoothest experience. The headbanging wasn't as bad, but the Cobra Loop and the interlocking corkscrews would bounce my head around a little, but not like last year that left me with a headache. I'm giving Kumba a score of 7 for ride smoothness. Alright, our final score comes to 8.6, which is a great score. For someone who said last year that this ride should be destroyed, a high score like this sounds surprising. Kumba is exactly what you expect, a solid looping roller coaster by B&M. It's what all modern looping roller coasters by B&M base their layout around. I've said this in past videos, but the sequence of inversions are seen in many other B&M roller coasters. My personal score is going to be a 6. The fact is, as much as I can respect this roller coaster for what it is and what it's accomplished, I'm just not a huge fan. I think it's a fun ride if you're in the right seat. The headbanging is what can really make or break your ride experience. This year, I walked off feeling okay, last year was a different story. The zero-G roll is a great moment, but that's really the only part of the ride that puts a big smile on my face. Now, do I want this coaster removed? No, I do think it could use a major refurbishment though, like retracking the entire ride. It's not like Busch Gardens is super pressed with space. If they were, then yes, I'd be more on board with removing it so they could build a bigger and better coaster in its place. Well, that's gonna do it for my review of Kumba. What do you think of this classic yet modern looping roller coaster? I know it's crazy to think that technically Kumba is a classic coaster about to celebrate 30 years of operation. If you enjoyed this video, please click on that like button, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe. That way you continue to get more great content brought to you by Extreme Thrills.